On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Time is 6:06, and you're listening to O'Connor and Company here to get your Tuesday morning off and running the right way. It's 6:35. Nate HURTO from Save Del Rey in Alexandria about a zoning vote happening today that you need to know about. At 7:05, Gavin Pepper. He is a politician in Ireland, and we reported on the ugly scenes there and the absolutely disconnected government there, wanting to, the real problem here is that people have too much free speech. We'll talk to Gavin Pepper, find out what's going on there. At 7:35, Elizabeth McGeegan. She's with Philanthropy Roundtable as we talk about Giving Tuesday today. And then at 8:05, our old friend Sean Spicer. Speaking of Del Rey, I think he lives right in Del Rey there, or outskirts of Del Rey. I should probably give Sean Spicer's address. He'll have people
no, don't do that.
Marching down the street there. Well, he and Julie Gunlock and Mercedes Schlepp all sort of live in the same sort of half-mile radius of each other. It's quite a little block party over there, Patrice.
Yeah, they say all the cool kids live in Northern Virginia, but we Marylanders, we know otherwise.
That's right. We got our own kind of cool.
High five.
That's right. Boom. Drink our orange crushes and get trashed with the crab cakes. That's what our life is like.
I was actually just up in Baltimore having some of those world-famous crab cakes at Fidley's.
Oh, yes. That's some good stuff right there. All right.
Yes,
Let's see you do that, Northern Virginia. Although they do have good wine, I want to say. All right, let's move on to the Secretary of Homeland Security. The guy is a disaster. He's a complete mess.
Yes.
And he should be impeached, and it looks like he will be impeached. But he was giving a television interview yesterday, and he actually said the quiet part out loud. You know how he keeps saying the border is secure, everything is orderly, everything's going according to plan, everything's going according to procedure, as you see, literally millions of people illegally crossing into this country without any trace, without any knowledge.
That's right. No vetting of who they are, where they come from, what criminal records they have.
Right. Well, he approved yesterday that this is basically all part of the plan. Because he was asked by a reporter, by a journalist, a TV host, who granted the ridiculous label of undocumented workers to the people who have crossed our border illegally. Their first act on our soil is to break our laws and thumb their nose at any sort of orderly civilization in our country. He said, well, what are we supposed to do with all of them? What are you going to do now that you've got these millions and millions of people here?
The other sort of elephant in the room, which is dealing with the undocumented immigrants who are already here in the nation. And I know it's been a political football as they're trying to figure out the best way to address that. But I'm going to ask you, what is the best way to address that from your perspective?
The answer is quite clear and quite straightforward, and we've been waiting for it for about 30 years. And that is to fix a system that everyone agrees is fundamentally broken, and we need congressional action, both for the lawful pathways that really need to be more robust in statute, and for the 12 million people who are here in the United States who have been contributing so fundamentally to our country's well-being. They're our neighbors, our friends, our fellow congregants. They provide our frontline workers. We need to do something, and I am hopeful and remain hopeful that Congress will do it. The president, on his first day in office, presented Congress with a proposal.
Short answer, amnesty. Anyone who's here who crossed the border illegally, whether it was years ago or under my watch, to the tune of 8 million and growing. He said 12 million total. That's a joke. It was 12 million before he took office. It's got to be upwards to 20 million now. Yeah. Everybody gets amnesty. Everybody gets citizenship. Everybody gets to vote. That's the plan. That's what they want to do, and he just revealed it. And by the way, one other thing here before I let you in here, because I know that this fires you up as a legal immigrant to this country. Mayorkas said we've been waiting for this for 30 years. 30 years ago was 1983. In 1987, Ronald Reagan, against his best judgment, against his promises, against his instincts, in 1987, he went ahead and acquiesced to these people who were pushing for amnesty. We were told at that time, Reagan, you give us amnesty for every illegal in the country, and we will end illegal immigration. We will shut it down. Give amnesty to everybody today. We'll build a wall. We'll protect the border, and we'll never have to deal with this again. And under that lie, Ronald Reagan signed the 87 Immigration Reform Act that Teddy Kennedy demanded. And everybody got amnesty back then. And so he's saying 30 years ago. 30 years ago was even before the amnesty that they forced on us and lied about. And they're lying again today. If anybody believes that the amnesty and then they'll get serious about protecting the border, you're smoking something.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we all knew this is what the end game has always been for the Biden administration. Let in as many people as possible, get them ingrained into the communities across this country, claim that they are tax-paying, law-abiding citizens, so that then when it's time for amnesty, you've already made the case that these individuals are so part of the community that they can't be ripped apart, taken and sent back home, that they are contributing to their communities. Well, he neglects the fact that illegal immigration undercuts economic opportunities for naturalized Native Americans and naturalized U.S. citizens. Yeah. They bring in, because you're not properly vetting the people coming in, you have gang members like MS-13, you have violent rapists and murderers. Yes, I'm using that language because these people are coming in. You have people on the terrorist watch list who are able to come in illegally and are disappearing into the rest of the country to do who knows what. Listen, I agree. The one place I agreed with him on is that our current immigration system makes it very difficult for people to take legal paths to get to this country. I'm with you. Let's reform our immigration system so that we are taking an economic approach. If we need more day laborers, if we need more people to take our Maryland crabs and take the crab meat out, if we need seasonal workers, if we need workers in particular fields and industries and areas for particular periods of time, that's one thing. We can create a visa process that deals with that, but not granting amnesty to millions of people and then thinking that somehow in 10 years from now or 20 years from now, we're not going to be right back at ground zero. And without even dealing with all of the people who are here with nefarious purposes. It is the poor communities and the immigrant communities that suffer when you have these kind of folks embedded there. But that's what the Biden administration wants.
I agree. But you know what? The specialty immigration process for the women who come up and shuck Maryland blue crabs and get all the lump. I mean, it is an amazing story, but that's already working. That's already in place. That doesn't need. If you want to
ramp it up, that's fine.
I suppose, but nothing should be done. Nothing should be done until the crime that has been committed by this administration is rectified.
Well, and by the way, until you close the border, right. That's first and foremost.
Close the border and get the people out that got in here under their watch. They need to be deported. And I just want to so you know, I took this job knowing that there was no math involved, but I either thought it was 2013 right now or I did the math wrong. But yes, 30 years ago was 1993, not 1983. But still, that's pretty telling. 6 years after the immigration reform of 87 that granted amnesty to everyone, Mayorkas is now saying, well, we've been wanting this for 30 years. Oh, so 6 years after, once you got Bill Clinton in office, 6 years after Reagan gave amnesty to all the illegals who were in this country, you were already demanding that you get more amnesty, that you get more immigration reform, that you get. They're never satisfied.
Oh,
There's
never satisfied.
Always more.
Satisfied.
They won't be satisfied until there are no borders. It's 6:15 now. WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
On the next Vince Coglianese show, the stories ripped from the headlines and translated into the truth. Join us 3 to 6 on WMAL.
The lawful pathways that really need to be more robust.
Lawful pathways that need to be robust. That means more immigration. And, of course, he talked about amnesty, Mayorkas, normalization, as Mayorkas puts it. They'll never use the words. You know, they like to play with the language.
They use euphemisms.
That's
they use
right.
everything else that they can. But Mayorkas is just playing a shell game, and we're seeing right through it.
Yep. Back in '87, it was called amnesty. Now they won't use that word because they know that it hurts them politically. But it's what they want, and they'll come up with euphemisms for it, as you say, Patrice. But the bottom line is, everybody who got in when Mayorkas opened the gates at Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's demand, they're all going to be your voting neighbors if the Democrats have their way. He says that now, and meanwhile, down in Mexico, we're seeing more trains filled with illegal immigrants. These are freight trains, but sitting on top of the freight cars are people, mostly men, mostly coming from Guadalajara and Honduras, and they're all making their way to the U.S. border. This is another surge that the Border Patrol is predicting in the coming weeks before the end of the new year. It often happens at this time of year, and you can see these videos of trains, 200 miles of a trek that they're taking right now from Guanajuato in Mexico, heading our way to Eagle Pass, Texas. Expect
more of this over the next 9 months, right? Because these immigrants, these illegal immigrants, recognize that if there is a shift in power, if the Biden administration does not continue, they're going to have a very short window to get in. If you have a Trump administration or a conservative administration, you can absolutely bet your bottom dollar that things will change overnight. And so they're going to try and get as many people in as possible. And you know what that's going to do? That is going to upset a lot of urban areas where regular residents and citizens are suffering because of the crush of illegal immigration on public services, public schools, and public safety. So, they're shooting themselves in the foot, the Biden administration, when you think about it. Maybe it'll get worse, or maybe Biden will pick up the phone and say, hey, guys, I got an election. Can you just shut it down for a few months here? It's not looking good on TV. It's not going to help me win in November. And then as soon as I win the election in November, or as soon as I'm declared winner of the election in November, then we'll go ahead and turn the spigot back on. Meanwhile, in Denver, Colorado has been a hotbed of illegal immigration for a couple of decades now. Denver School District has now drafted a policy to adopt what they're calling language justice. This will help non-English speaking students be able to use their native language when learning versus being educated in English. First, we were English only, and then bilingual education was forced on us, which then made major school districts hire very expensive bilingual teachers who oftentimes brought their own political agenda to the table too. We used to say, no, listen, this is America. English is our language. If you want to learn here, you have to learn in our language. Otherwise, you're not going to be hireable. You need to learn in English. If you want to speak Spanish at home, speak Spanish at home, but learn in English. So then we were forced to do bilingual education, and now they've gone all the way over, and now if a Spanish-speaking student is going to school in Denver, they can demand to learn the entire curriculum for 13 years in Spanish. This is crazy. So language justice, let me just define it for our listeners. It's the key practice used in social justice movements to create shared power, practice inclusion, and dismantle traditional systems of oppression.
There you go.
That have traditionally disenfranchised non-English speakers. That is just crock, and crock. As an immigrant, as a naturalized citizen and proud American, there is something important about a culture becoming a part of the culture, about adopting the culture. And part of the culture is learning the language. There is nothing wrong with you speaking your home language at home, but you learn, becoming part of an American means speaking with understanding, speaking English.
Yeah.
And it does a disservice to these young people to say, no, you don't have to become part of the American culture. You don't have to learn English, which is universally recognized, not just here in the United States. And so instead of facilitating the culturation process, you are actually ensuring that these pockets remain very much fragmented and separated, and that way then you can use them for your nefarious social justice ends. This is not about making Americans. This is about making people who, frankly, get taught to hate America.
It's Marxist. 622. And while we're talking about the members of the Biden cabinet, let's talk about the education secretary, shall we? Do we have any doubt that this administration is populated by morons after this. And this is, again, he's in charge of education in this country, Patrice. He was at a presentation about 2 weeks ago, and this video was just uncovered by our friends over at Town Hall. Listen to this.
You know, we're going to set up follow-up calls with every governor we met with to make sure we're available. As I think it was President Reagan said, we're from the government. We're here to help.
Let me just pause there for a minute. And anyone with any level of education hears that. Ronald Reagan said, "I'm with the government. We're here to help." Really? That doesn't sound like Reagan.
No, he wouldn't. He wouldn't.
And of course, he didn't. Anybody who has any level of education knows exactly what Reagan said.
I think you all know that I've always felt the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help."
Yeah, that's what Reagan said.
Exactly.
But here's the education secretary.
As I think it was President Reagan said, we're from the government. We're here to help.
We're not only being led by morons, Patrice Onwuka, but this is the moron who's actually in charge of education of the American children.
But the sad part is he actually believes that. He belongs to those people who believe that the government can actually make people's lives better. And maybe in a few you can find 1 or 2 ways that the government, they keep our roads done. They pick up our trash, but the federal government, not a lot of things, and they protect us. They're supposed to.
Yeah, that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to secure the borders. I won't trust the government in doing any of the basic necessities if they can't even do that one.
As I think it was President Reagan said, we're from the government. We're here to help.
I can't leave it at that. Ronnie, please take us home.
I think you all know that I've always felt the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help."
Oh, please come back and lead us, sir. It's 6:30.
WMAL FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:37 on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here as we get you going the right way this Tuesday morning in the nation's capital. At 7:05, Gavin Pepper. He is a politician in Ireland as we saw things erupt there. What's going on in the Emerald Isle? He'll give us a first-hand account. 7:35, Elizabeth McGeegan. She's with Philanthropy Roundtable about today's Giving Tuesday events. And then at 8:05, our pal, Sean Spicer. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Patrice Onwuka. Jamming out. Good morning, Patrice.
I am. Good music. Good morning.
Let's give you a quick roundup of what's about to happen in Delray. Alexandria City Council today proposing a bill. Listen to how NBC Washington sums it up.
If you walk through some neighborhoods in Alexandria, you'll see a lot of signs like these ones saying no to zoning changes.
We're not interested in having, for example, fourplexes built in these neighborhoods.
Under a new zoning for housing proposal by the city of Alexandria, there would be more density in single-family neighborhoods and high-rise condos and rentals in industrial areas.
In theory, across the street we could have a restaurant. I asked, can you have a gas station? And I never got an answer.
City Council says the goal is to make homes more affordable for all. They first unveiled the plan in September and will vote November 28th.
Is that really the goal, just to make things more affordable? Also, Alexandria, Delray neighborhood, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? It's a lovely neighborhood, and housing real estate value is very high. Why do this other than the obvious answer, which is to get more people in there for more tax revenue so the city can spend more money on stupid things? Well, let's find out about this from a person who's against it. He's trying to actually push back on this effort to change the face of Delray. He's Nate HURTO. He's with Save Delray. You can join that Facebook group. Nate, thanks for joining us.
No, thanks for having me.
First of all, how does this vote go? This is purely in the hands of the city council, and they vote on it at the meeting tonight?
That's correct, yeah. They will be voting on it tonight. There were 2 sessions of public input on the 14th and the 18th of November, and we saw overwhelming opposition there, just like we have in every survey or questionnaire that's come out.
Yeah, 81.5% of respondents in the survey are against this thing. So, I mean, there's no way the politicians will go for it with that kind of overwhelming opposition, is there?
Well, I hope that they will listen to the constituents and that they will take that feedback and really divide this bill, because there are some things that are positive here, right? I think we should encourage, some of these vacant office buildings to be, repurposed into housing. I think that's a great opportunity for us. But if you look at some of the really significant and frankly not impactful changes, especially those to single family, you get into a really divisive issue that, I hope that they will see what's going on in the community and choose to leave that portion alone and really focus on the areas that have overwhelming support, because there are quite a few areas of zoning for housing that do have support.
So, Nate, I think that was going to be my follow-up question. What are these proposals you mentioned converting maybe commercial real estate into potential residential? What about building multiple structures on maybe a particular lot? What are some of the other proposals that you and others could get behind? And do you think that there is enough will on the city council to maybe try to chop up this proposal rather than, go through with it?
Well, I think the office to residential conversion is by far the clear one that everybody can get behind. We went through a building rush in office space, and then we've seen what's happened with work from home. So, that's one that I think is a bit of a no-brainer to help codify that. Where we really get into the issues is when we start looking at the rhetoric around what taking an existing single-family home is, demolishing it and building a fourplex or whatever on that property. The reality of what we're seeing in Delray, you can just walk around and see this, just like you're seeing it in Arlington that passed a similar initiative, is that you'll have, corner of Duncan and Mount Vernon Avenue is a great example. $700,000 single-family bungalow was demolished, 4 $1.4 million townhouses put in their place. They're grossly out of scale for the neighborhood. They loom over the neighborhood. Every one of these meetings, somebody has called out a single-family farmhouse that was raised to put in a massive duplex with 2 massive ADUs directly across from the Duncan Library. So the reality of what we're seeing, not the theoretical academic advocate view of what could happen. The reality of what we're seeing is bigger, more expensive houses replacing smaller, more affordable ones.
You will hear people cite this issue and say, well, listen, every part of Northern Virginia right now is being inundated with a population surge. Part of that is because of the opening the floodgates of border crossings and illegal immigration, and people are being relocated here. We're seeing a lot of communities. Their makeup in the communities are absolutely transformed because of this influx of people. Why should, this is kind of a not in my backyard thing. Why should Delray be protected when other parts of Alexandria and other parts of Fairfax County and other parts of Northern Virginia are being affected by it?
Well, I don't think that that's an argument that I've heard on either side. And in fact, if you look at the census data and in fact our own dues payments to the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, our population is actually contracting in Alexandria. I think Alexandria is an incredibly welcoming community. Where people are really concerned here is not that there's going to be more neighbors or any of these conversations. It's the infrastructure is in desperate need of update. Anybody who lives in someplace that's flood prone knows that. Our schools have 140 open positions. One of the things that strikes me is we had one of the density advocates that presented to the council was a school teacher and talked about how it was only because of generational wealth that he could afford to live here. Yet the answer is sitting there with the city council, then just pay your employees a wage that allows them to live here. That's not part of the conversation, which makes me question the legitimacy of the concern for that class of people. While we'll pull at the emotional heartstrings of firefighters and first responders and school teachers and all of these
that's what they do.
Really vital resources. What they're not saying is, and we are also going to back that up by paying them a wage that allows them to live here. Because let's just be clear, right? City Council has no power to reduce the cost of housing.
Can I just, is there still a chance for people to have their voices heard on this, Nate? How can people make sure that they register their opinion before the vote tonight?
There's not a lot of time. The best thing that you can do is email each of the members of council. Alexandria's got a great website that allows you to email them directly. I don't know if they'll have time to read it before the vote.
Well, if you put it in
it's
pretty easy. Just put it in the subject line; they'll see it. Flood the inbox, and your voice will be heard in one way or the other. Make it pithy. Don't write a big 6,000-word essay.
All caps.
Just no on this. No on this. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it, Nate. I appreciate you joining us.
Thank you so much, Nate.
Thank you.
It's
6:40.
All right. Hey, remember back in 2012 when Mitt Romney was a racist, sexist, elitist, billionaire homophobe who probably killed people because he didn't want to give them any health care when he was taking over companies? You remember, he was evil incarnate.
He was running against a popular president at the time, if I'm not wrong.
It was Barack Obama who could do no wrong. And so Mitt Romney had to not just be defeated, he had to be destroyed and slimed and slandered and crushed, and he was awful. Worst human being in the world. Well, that was then, this is now. Now they love him. Huffington Post has this headline: Mitt Romney names the 2 Republican presidential candidates he won't vote for. I'm sorry, what has changed about Mitt Romney that the Huffington Post should even care what his opinion is? Oh, this is what changed. He doesn't like Trump.
Who do you like in the Republican field?
Anybody. I'd be happy to support virtually any one of the Republicans, maybe not Vivek, but the others that are running would be acceptable to me, and I'd be happy to vote for them. I'd be happy to vote for a number of the Democrats, too. I mean, it would be an upgrade from, in my opinion, from Donald Trump and perhaps also from Joe Biden. Look, I like President Biden. I find him a very charming, engaging person. There's some places I agree with him, but most places I disagree with him. I think he's made all sorts of terrible mistakes, but I would like to see someone else run.
Yeah, fine. You know what? Mitt Romney suffers from the first and most important serious flaw of any politician. That is the desire to be adored. And he will never recover from people daring to say mean things about him. Not in 2012. He's recovered from that because all the people who said mean things about him back then, they love him now because he's anti-Trump. No, what he won't recover from is people saying mean things about him after that. The Republicans who have said mean things about him, that he won't forgive, that he won't look beyond. And for anyone to say that Joe Biden is an upgrade of Donald Trump knows nothing about the reality of what people are living through in this country right now. This is an embarrassment.
It is. I mean, certainly the fact that Biden is bleeding support among blacks and Hispanics because they recognize Biden has done nothing for them. In fact, made their financial situations worse. Speaks volumes. I think the bigger issue, though, is tell me which Democrat is worthy of being president. The ones that are pro Hamas and pro Palestine right now. The ones that are willing to are forcing you to accept whether you're school teacher or school administrator is hiding the fact that your daughter is pretending to be your son and then telling you that you have no voice in their education system. Yeah. I mean, the Democrats that are saying, you know what, if you're stuck in a crappy school, suck it up. I mean, those are the Democrats that are worthy of his vote?
Well, and again, Mitt Romney hasn't changed. He didn't care about those issues back then. And he never really gave voice or understood those issues back then. Yeah. And but I do love the fact, though, that the media now thinks that Mitt Romney is the greatest Republican of all kind when they absolutely destroyed him and slandered him in